Okay.
Hey!
Woo, we did it. Friends, we finally made it. Welcome to the first episode of It Crept from the 90s.
Woo!
It's a long time coming.
You gotta change his background.
No, it's pretty much staying the
You
same.
need more neon.
Until we get to the studio or whatever.
Yeah.
So, if you've watched any of the videos before for the Crept from the 80s stuff, you've heard me threaten this. Because it is an important part of our development as humans and geeks and, who we are, I suppose. And I gotta pull... Sorry, guys, Sorry, Casey.
You're thick. Your little nose.
It's
fine.
It does my glasses up.
This is good.
So this is what we gotta do until we're vaccinated. So, so we're gonna do this a little differently because this isn't going to be like a long form thing. This isn't gonna go for years and years.
That's what he says.
That's what I know. This Crept from the 90s thing. Because primarily my love, my obsession, and my focus is my time in the 1980s. And that far destroys the 90s as far as I'm concerned.
I gotcha.
So we will go through year by year. 1990 to 1999, but in betwixt all of those themed episodes, we will do special one-off episodes about certain things in the 90s that happened to us, movies that really holy shit, we need to talk about this movie in particular, this thing in particular, whatever it is.
I have so many.
I'm sure you do. So there will be that, but it's not going to be an ongoing thing like the channel itself, which is I crept from the 80s, or it crept from the 80s. I crept from the 70s. He crept from the 80s.
I did. I crawled right out of that. Son of a bitch.
And I know that there's a lot of younger viewers, not child viewers, but younger adults who are in their 30s.
Okay, yeah.
Who grew up more in the 90s and not the 80s, and are looking forward to talking about that stuff.
Can't wait to read those comments, man. What if the views for the 90s exceed the 80s? I know you don't care about that stuff. I know it's not your...
That's great. It's just great for the channel.
Okay.
But it ain't gonna take over the channel.
I do not want it to take over the channel. As much as I like the 90s, the 80s are still the best decade of all time. So
they are forever.
But I just have to do a spin-off channel.
What? No. What are we still aping today? We're aping the 80s.
Oh yeah.
Over and over. We ain't aping the 90s, so don't even try to front. And regardless of how you 90s kids feel, you're wrong. So, no. Listen, we all had our thing, right? The people who grew up in the 60s think the 60s were amazing. People who grew up in the 70s, so on and so forth. But you cannot deny that the 80s were something special.
Well, they're here.
The 80s is everywhere. Yes, I mean, the 80s was something special and something cosmically far more special than the 90s. Even though some of you kids were growing up in the 90s. And you love what you love, and that's great. And I'm sure we will touch on some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only I don't know what, maybe 20% kidding when I say I hated the 90s.
Because there's tons, I was talking to my wife about it too, because she is a 90s. I mean, she was born in the 80s too, but 90s chick, and I was like, I know we're going to get into this, and he is going to start gushing about, because I know some of the things that you absolutely love from the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. But it doesn't... I mean, listen, even the...
I mean, we're not going to talk about the music too much.
A little...
too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that we're starting off the early 90s, because there's still some great music.
Yeah.
But man, I'm telling you, you ain't going to hear that from me. Maybe, probably from him, but it ain't from me.
Yeah.
Like, overall, I think the music from the 90s is atrocious. I hate it. I think it's terrible music. So, that's not going to be from me. And that's all for you guys. Enjoy. Enjoy. You like what you like, and I'm not taking that away from you, and you can't take away anything from me. But I do half joke about my hatred for the 90s, because as you will hear, episode to episode, and truth be told, there was a lot of monumentally great things that happened to me and to us together in the 90s that you just can't take away, and it helped continue to shape who we were as individuals. So there is some great things, but yeah, I will never bow to it. So it's not going to happen. So right off the bat, we're going to start with sort of our general feelings of 1990 or going into the 90s, and it's going to be different because of the age difference. You were
It was
probably
only 4 years.
I know, but you know, that's back then. That meant something.
Yeah,
now it doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it did. It just it did.
Yeah.
You were still in a certain spot, you know, and you were still in that sweet spot as a kid, you know.
Yeah.
So it was amazingly fresh and new going into the 90s as this kid, and I was going into the 90s as a teenager. I was a teenager. So for me, 1990, I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The big thing, I think, for me, going into the 90s, and, you know, the 90s in general, the decade in general, is the emergence of me truly embracing being a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Truly embracing ska, you know, and again, we will talk about that in a different thing.
Yeah.
Our history with that,
Mm-hmm.
Because it was before the 90s, for me anyway. Well, I guess it would more pertain to having an actual band.
Yeah.
Because I had never had a band before. You know, I didn't have a band when I was a kid in the 80s, but I certainly did in the 90s. So 1990 in particular, I was 13. I remember our family going on several trips that particular year. I remember twice I got to go alone to White Plains, New York, which is where my cousin Jess moved to, and my Uncle John and Aunt Suzanne. So 2 times that year I went out and visited them for a week each time, and that was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Also, what happened in 1990 is I went to summer camp. And I did that 2 years in a row.
Really?
It was sleepaway camp.
Okay.
And that was a week.
Wow.
Each year.
Did you like that?
I will say the first 1990, the first year that I went, I did not like it. I liked it by the end because I ended up making friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I had those friends
right,
to the next year,
yeah,
but after that, it was
they
gone.
disappeared.
Yeah, it was just gone.
Yeah.
But the camp was called Camp Gorton, and it's still there.
Is it? Where is
yes,
it?
It is still a running camp. I don't know. We'll have to put it up.
Okay.
Maybe you guys know, but it's called Camp Gorton, and
I remember you.
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it because again, it was another. I'm getting away from the family, the parents, everything, and I'm on my own. Even though the one time I'm going with my relatives,
family,
but this was sleepaway camp. This was I'm gone in some weird ass place for a week with a bunch of people I don't know, staying in a cabin with dudes, with my own age.
Yeah.
So it was. All I can remember. Here's one of the terrible things that I remember from that first week of camp at Camp Gorton. 13 years old, 1990. The first couple nights, I was terrified. Terrified. Because we were, this camp was just out in the middle of the woods, right? But it was a big camp. It had a mess hall, a lake, all the stuff. All the counselors
typical
were close.
Wana
Yeah,
scenario.
it was, And I didn't even know it yet because that wasn't the time yet.
Yeah.
But you better believe I was thinking of Friday the 13th. I was thinking of sleepaway camp, and I was a fan of all that stuff. But I was in that setting.
Yeah.
And us kids were in those bunks alone. The troop people were close. They were close by, but they weren't in it with us. So I remember. I'll never forget this. One thing. Wait. Before even that, just as a side funny thing, I'll never forget. There was this counselor who. So every night we all gathered around a big bonfire because it was the end of the end of the day's activity stuff, and we were just chilling, and it was just time to hang out and roast marshmallows, and it was like a nightly thing. Yeah, it was a nightly thing.
Yeah.
But one of the dudes, and at that time the counselor must have been 18,
probably.
Whatever, something like that. So they were still teens themselves, but older than us. So this dude was your typical tight shorts, the white tight shirt with the name on there, and he has his acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
He's got big old glasses, and his socks were pulled up and all this shit. And he starts going every day things are getting better. He's singing Buddy Holly and shit. And he's and he's doing all of that, and he's serious. And I remember me and my bunkmates were losing it, laughing at this kid, because he was really trying to be.
He probably
awesome.
got super laid that night.
Yeah, probably. So he's singing Buddy Holly, and we're just losing our shit. This guy's ridiculous. What the fuck is going on? But on one of those fateful nights, I'm awoken by a terrible, terrible, monstrous scream.
Monstrous?
Yes.
Not human?
No. This thing sounded honestly, I thought it was a Bigfoot. You know? I have never heard anything like that before.
Explains
never heard anything like that before. I said, well, that's what my 13-year-old head is going to I watch all those fucking unexplained shows and unsolved mysteries and shit like that. So
sex squatch.
My brain is always ooh, and I totally believe in aliens and all that shit. So I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, it literally sounded like a monster screaming, just screaming off in the distance, right? And I start flipping out. And my bunkmates are like, "Oh my god, what the fuck?
Did anyone else hear this?"
Oh yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And I think they were more frightened at my reaction.
Yeah.
And then what sucks is that even when the counselors came in, they couldn't say what it was.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know what it was. So there was no, like, reassurance or resolution to that. There was no one saying, oh, it was, like an animal.
Yeah.
Because they were like, I don't know what that was. So to this day, like, I still don't know what the fuck that was. I don't know if it was like a animal getting hurt or like I don't know. Probably an animal of some sort. But
it's an animal.
I mean, it was just, But for those teen years, I was convinced that there was a Sasquatch out there. There was some sort of man beast from beyond, like. So that's something I'll never forget from 1990.
It's horrible.
Those family trips. It was the first time that I had been to the ocean and got to swim in the ocean.
You still hate it.
And I do. Actually,
or did you like
my ideal?
Oh right, you like blue ocean.
Punta Cana.
Yeah.
If
like
if the
glass.
ocean is just fucking you just see everything.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous, and I loved it, and I loved being in it. I mean, that's Fantasy Island type shit.
Yeah.
But if it's just straight up ocean, I don't fucking like it. And I think a lot of it stems because that one time that I got in the ocean when I'm a teenager, I get stung by a jellyfish several times.
Yeah.
And I'm like on fire. I was screaming. And I remember like the family was like, Chris, you gotta pee in a bucket and then
pour it on
yourself. And I was just like,
why would you even think to do that while you're burning? Like,
I know.
I wouldn't be able to summon a pee.
Well, it happened, and I, and I had these fucking marks all over my legs because, wouldn't you know it, as soon as Seaver gets in the fucking ocean, he gets stung by jellyfish. So yeah, 1990, huzzah. But yeah, so that's like a general that's a general, outside of sort of the entertainment, that was my 1990,
Traveling, camping.
Sasquatch and peeing on myself and having those crazy experiences. And really, I mean, and at this point, I am like full on Mr. Horror fan,
Yeah.
Earlier, yes, but this is like, I am just devouring it, and it's 1 year before I create low budget pictures, so I'm still making backyard shit with the family and everything, and at this point it was called. At this point, it wasn't called anything because what I was doing. What I was doing was before any of the. So I would make these backyard shits, and then show them to the family, right? Or show them to the cousins, or whatever it was. And so the logo was always New Line Cinema. So I would just, because I was editing from my video camera to the VCR, and like back and forth and stuff. So the opening was the New Line Cinema logo. Before we even put a name to anything, so yeah, so that's.
And then Bob Shea called you.
Yeah, so that's general 1990s, man. Before we get into all the stuff,
I want to say.
You have any recollection?
Well, I was trying to think of where I was in 1990 because I think I was in Olean because the year before I think is when we were in. North Carolina, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So, yes, that was my 4th grade. That was the year my mom screwed up cutting my hair. Like, I used to have magnificent curls like my daughter does now, and she screwed up my haircut and shaved it. And I have had the same haircut since 1990. I've let it grow sometimes. I'll experiment.
I remember with you with hair in our adolescence.
Yes, but for the most part, it has stayed pretty consistent. Every once in a while, yeah, I'll let it grow for 6 months or whatever, and then I get sick of it.
Well, I mean, you definitely had hair, like, when I always bring up that time where I went to your house and we played He-Man.
I know, you always, I don't know.
And you had a shit ton of He-Man.
Well,
But you definitely had hair then. I remember that.
that's cool.
It was like...
Was it 1990?
Lovely locks.
Yeah.
No, it was before that.
Oh, it was before that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the thing. So I moved to Virginia one year, and then I remember North Carolina specifically because it was 89 Simpsons premiered when we were down there. And I had watched the Tracy Ullman show. I remember that as a kid and remember going, whoa, the animation in my little brain, like going, whoa, this is better. This is kind of different. And my parents were like, you shouldn't be watching this. But then they would laugh, and then we watched it. And I was obsessed with The Simpsons for 10 years at least.
Yeah.
11 years. But yeah, you know, I guess I was only in 4th grade. And that's pretty much all I remember. My mom screwing up my hair.
Yeah.
I don't have the same memory as you do. I'll remember things when you say things and it'll jog my memory.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, like, you know, when I look back through this list, I'm like, oh yeah, I was at this place at this time. But
I think it's because for me, all my best times are behind me. Or maybe I just have a pretty good memory when it comes to things.
You
like
have
that.
a good memory when it comes to things.
I'd like to believe I still have some good times.
I mean,
ahead.
2020 aside, you know, the future will at some point become bright again, I'm sure.
I hope so.
Hey, there's a Teen Wolf toy coming out. Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's true. We do have that. Thanks, Migo.
And we have this new show, you know, it Crept from the 90s to really just dive deep into it.
Oh, shit. So...
Let's give you some crossover.
Yeah, probably. But you know what? I'm going to do... let's do the smaller stuff before we go into this fucking giant list of movies.
Okay. Movies and TV.
So I'm going to... Here's the thing. So I wrote this down as far as, like... the year is 1990. What are the things that stood out to me that were new and I embraced? That's what it is. Because there's lots of stuff that just kept going from the 80s that didn't...
Yeah, I didn't write any of that.
Neither did I.
Stuff at all. And... Because did you write on video games?
I didn't. Because
Okay.
I figured we could probably do a 1990s video game because it was such a very... It was like a big deal.
Well, I'll
You know what I mean?
touch upon the video games from 1990.
Okay.
But yes, whoa, 90s video games. I mean, that is defining.
Yeah. So, so you know, what I just said, there were already television shows and cartoons that were seasons in that were continuing from the 80s into the 90s. But this was the only cartoon in 1990 that I enjoyed.
New cartoon.
New cartoon.
Okay.
Because I was still watching the old favorites.
Yeah.
So this was a new cartoon that debuted, and it is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the cartoon, and I had a Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure floppy disk game on our computer that I would play, and you could go through time, and I want to say it was like, that really shitty it was black and white DOS, right? So you see like a picture, but it was mostly like a text sort of situation, like, oh, you land in this time, and Abe Lincoln's here, or whatever. But yeah, I did watch the cartoon, and I played the PC game.
So these are the TV shows that were brand new.
Okay.
Um,
Wait, well, I have more cartoons.
oh no, say your cartoons.
Okay, so
Yeah.
because I know you didn't watch this shit. Tailspin.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of this.
I love that. Bobby's World. So funny. Tiny Toon Adventures, produced by Steven Spielberg. And even though I wasn't as huge into it as I was these other guys, Captain Planet, because I did watch it, and I feel like I don't know anyone in the world who doesn't know who Captain Planet is. So it at least had some cultural significance to it.
Mm.
I know you.
Yeah, I don't. I just didn't watch any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me do toys.
Okay.
So the toys in 1990 that I sort of, again, some of these started in the 80s, and some of these started like just in 89, and they just kept going.
So okay.
But I only did the toys that I know.
Started in 90.
Well, sort of, because like there's 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines that did start in the late 80s.
I didn't write down any of those then.
Okay. So, because I was still getting real Ghostbusters, and they just kept putting out more and more stupidity. This was probably the last year that I got anything real Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Because it just was like, okay, what is this? But so in '89, Batman was in Toy Biz, was through Toy Biz, and so I think everybody was going gaga for the movie toys, and I certainly did.
Oh, I did.
And actually, Grandma Bowker got me the Batwing.
Did she really?
From the movie.
Jeez.
And I remember opening it at Grandma Bowker's house and like flipping out.
Yeah.
And I remember it being like one of the greatest gifts that they have ever given.
I was gonna say,
you know
I could count on like maybe one finger how many gifts were like, wow, you guys actually know what I'm into.
Yeah.
Because most of it's like clothes and shit you just didn't care.
I think it was just because '89 was the friggin' year of Batman, and everybody Batman was everything.
I had those toys down in North Carolina. I had them.
So, but in 1990, the Batman went to Kenner.
Yeah.
So I did get a few of those. They were called like Dark Knight, and so they handled Batman going forward until like, I don't know, 2000.
What was it, like Hydro Batman?
Yeah, but that was late. I mean,
Golden.
This was like, they basically repurposed the original 89 stuff and put out like a Bruce Wayne, a Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne and all this stuff. And then they did the Batman Returns and Batman Forever and all that shit. I didn't get any of that. But I was getting RoboCop. I was getting Police Academy. Again, these were 89, but it was still going forward.
I had a lot of Police Academy.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, by this time, I was really done with the Turtles, because I had like 2 years of collecting some of the stuff. And I would say maybe this 2 to 3 of the series is the only thing that I got. I didn't keep getting them when they started doing all this wacky shit. I just didn't. But in 1990, they released those movie versions, and they were like made of like latex, and they tried to emulate what they looked like in the movies.
That's what I wrote. That's the only toy I actually wrote down. Was the movie Turtle. Yeah.
Okay. But in 1990, it was also the big Marvel Toy Biz push.
Oh, really?
Yep, it was.
I didn't even see that.
With Spider-Man.
Well,
I mean, there was Captain America. It was like the Marvel guys. So I got like all of those guys. All of those Marvel Toy Biz. And really, from 90 on until like 94, I was getting all those Toy Biz, and I wasn't
opening
them.
Yeah.
You know, I did open some of the, like I did open Daredevil. I did open certain toys because they were just cool, and Daredevil came with his string nunchaku and everything like that. And I was like, this is dope.
Yeah.
You know? So I did open and play with it a little bit, but 13 was definitely the last year of actual play.
Listen to our toy collecting episode.
I stopped actually playing with the toys and just started posing or keeping them in the packages and hanging them up on my bedroom wall.
Similar to this.
Really, that was those were the toys.
Yep.
Of 1990.
I just want to say off of Spider-Man, Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man for comics.
That was 90?
That's what it said when I looked up.
I feel like it was, I want to say it was 88 or 89. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I definitely was getting the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man.
Yeah.
For sure. Everyone was.
Yep.
His art was a revelation.
That's what I was telling my wife. I was like, that changed Spider-Man, the way he looked after that.
For sure.
100%.
And the way he
moved.
Yes. Really.
I mean, and
Todd really started doing all that fucking
strings.
Weird ass, like his legs behind his fucking head in the air. And, I mean, he was nimble.
Love that guy. Todd Father.
The Todd Father?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, now I'll do TV, which isn't, like, surprisingly, isn't a long list, and that is because we still had long-running shows.
Yep.
So, these are specifically 1990 debuts.
Yep.
That me as a 13-year-old was like,
this is it.
Yeah, I'm on it. So, I just added these to the roster of shows that I was already entrenched in.
Yep.
Twin Peaks started.
And I still haven't watched it.
Yeah, I didn't know any other person besides me and, well, kid, besides me and this dude Richard, who I've talked about before, who was one of my buddies at school. And we jumped into Twin Peaks. And it was fucking weird. I mean, it was like, what a weird thing. But we did it. We watched Twin Peaks. We watched the 2 seasons. What a trip for a teenager, you know? In Living Color.
That's on there.
Debuted. And that was awesome. That show was huge.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was staying up and watching Saturday Night Live. You know, I had seen...
Been watching Saturday Night Live
so
forever.
many... Yeah, I mean, it was just... So this was new. This was like, oh, this is different, but it's like Saturday Night Live, but it's different, and it's edgier, and some of the stuff that they were saying, like, even I was getting... Because they were referencing a lot of things that I had already been like watching and stuff that I would rent and know about, like older stuff, movies, and you know, I'm just a pop culture sponge even then. So, and Living Color was
the Waynes, man.
Yeah,
it was
hell
great.
yeah, it was crazy.
And James Carrey.
Blossom.
That's
Blossom started. I mean, Blossom is like, to me, the quintessential early 90s television sitcom.
Yeah?
Like, it just came out of the gate looking like a fucking 90s show. You know? And it was a year after the 80s. Like...
You're saying it's ahead of its time?
It was like, what are these people wearing? You know?
Her hats.
Everything. Fucking
Joey's grunge look.
Yeah, it was just so like, where do these guys live?
Yeah.
You know? Because I was still in the 80s.
Well, you're from Wellsville, so. It's still in
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Got that down. Of course, gotta get that down.
I mean, that was a back-to-back 1-2 punch. NBC.
Yep.
You know, you got Blossom, you got The Fresh Prince, and being a Fresh Prince fan from DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
Yep.
This was like, ooh, like this is great.
You gotta watch that reunion, people. If you're a Fresh Prince
HBO
fan.
Max. Yeah,
So
it's a
good.
tearjerker.
So good.
It's really good.
What's a tearjerker?
But it's a great shows. I
Still holds up.
Oh yeah, I still think Blossom holds up. I watched
seen
Blossom
that in a really long time.
Oh man, it hasn't changed.
I'm sure I'll like it. I'm sure
Yeah,
you
it's
should
good.
watch it.
Whoa. The Flash.
That's on here.
It was only one season, but man, was it awesome. Like, I loved this show.
Did your brain think about it being DC? I was thinking about this today when I wrote it down, and I was like, this is probably... Batman and the Flash have always been my favorite DC characters.
Certainly...
And now it's probably because of this.
No, I knew it was DC. Because
I didn't think about it.
I had DC Comics and I had Marvel Comics.
Well, I just had Batman comics.
Well, yeah, that's it. But I knew the Flash.
Right, and so did I, but I'm saying, like, I didn't think about it as, like, these are two separate things. I just thought, these are comics.
I definitely knew. Even, like, watching the cartoons growing up, the Superpowers. You know, I knew that was DC.
Yeah.
Definitely. And again, I was 13.
You're
so yeah,
an old man.
I knew DC. But I loved it. I loved it. Too. To me, it was like an extension of the Burton Batman film.
Yep.
It was almost like it was set in the same universe. It had Danny Elfman doing the theme song.
Yep.
It just was dope. And to this day, that Flash television show is fantastic.
Yeah.
I've told people over and over again that the writing on that show was amazing. It was really great. So when you're watching it now, the stories and the characters hold up. It really is dope. Yeah, man. Where is that? Oh, here it is. And look at this. I have John Wesley Shipp, the Flash himself, signed it because I met him at Chiller Theater like 15 years ago. And I was telling him
Before the Flash show?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like...
I love this.
Yeah, I mean, I basically was like, people were sleeping on this thing, man. Like, it should have gone on. But the world just wasn't ready for it.
Luckily, he did come back, because
I
really enjoyed
Which
those
is
first
great.
seasons of The Flash.
Great
Yeah.
that they incorporated him.
That's good.
So dope.
What else?
I got two more things, and one. So I've talked about this. We have a show just devoted to this down on the channel. V, right? Okay, so V for me was the 80s epic miniseries that you couldn't miss. I was 6 years old and it like fascinated me and blew me away, and my family watched it. It was a big deal. So the 90 version of that was It. Stephen King's It was coming to prime time in a miniseries, and it was the talk of the channels. It was a huge thing. Everybody had to watch it, and I ate that shit up. So I love, many people don't like it now as they're older because they look back and they're like, oh, it's so cheesy. Fuck, it's dope, man. I love it. The original miniseries of It is fantastic. Great performances all around. It's eerie, it's spooky. Even Stephen King liked it, I don't know.
I watched it again before the new ones came out, and I liked it. I actually didn't write it down because I was like, I had it in my heart before I watched it again, and I was like, yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and then I watched those movies, and I was like, wow, what?
Yeah. I still love it. Still love it.
It's not a bad movie or miniseries.
And then probably the thing that changed my whole way of being a human being. The television show that just rocketed me out of my seat and into a whole other stratosphere of comedy Parker Lewis can't lose. My God,
uh,
this was fantastic.
you got it, sir.
And guys, like Herman's Head was cool, but I gotta be honest, the only reason I watched Herman's Head was because of William Ragsdale,
Yeah.
because I was already so obsessed with Fright Night and Fright Night 2. I was like, oh, he's in it, I gotta watch it, I gotta, whatever. But Parker Lewis blows it away. This show truly was ahead of its time.
Oh my God, and so many levels. Yeah.
The writing, the sight gags, the acting, all of it is just so fucking on point and smart and silly and absurd. I love it. I absolutely love the show. And, my sense, and again, I was already a Zucker Brothers fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Monty Python fan.
Mm-hmm.
But this was truly goofy, absurd type shit. Just the way that it really formed my comedy going forward of what I was really attracted to.
Yeah.
Which led to Mr. Show and Strangers with Candy and things like that. That type of just...
It's absurdist.
Surreal, absurdist. I just love it. I love it. And Parker Lewis was 1990, and it changed the game for old Sievage. Would you agree?
I do. Of course, it's on here. I have a few more.
Yeah, let's go. Talk about them.
Dream On.
And HBO? What were you doing?
Well, that was the thing. I should not
behind-
have seen this show at
Peeking at things?
9 years old. Yeah, we had HBO.
Some boobies?
There was boobies, so I was a fan of that show. America's Funniest People. Dave Coulier.
Yeah, I almost wrote it down, but I was far more a fan of...
So was I.
America's Funniest Home Videos.
So was I, but...
I guess it just fell into that category, so I didn't put it down. I don't know. I definitely watched those shows.
This show you absolutely did not watch, and I was obsessed with, and I still like that style of show to this day, 90210.
Yeah.
I still watch all that same shit.
Yeah. It's funny, I was talking to Clint about Wellsville Nights, and I'm like, one of the reasons why I want Casey involved is because he loves that fucking garbage from the 90s. And I said 90210.
Yeah. I watch all OC, Gossip Girl, all that crap. And then this last one, which I also don't think you watched, unless you were at Grandpa and Grandma's or something. Bob Villa's Home Again.
No, I never. I mean, of course I knew it, but I didn't watch it.
So,
I was like, who's this fucking old guy?
Yeah, when I was with my grandma, we would watch a lot of PBS, and since that show, I love home makeover shows. Love. Me and Nish will watch HGTV. Like, that's our, let's just turn our fucking brains off. I can watch any of that stuff any day of the week. So this probably is what started it. So
that's fun.
Yeah, love home makeover shit. I can't do shit, but I love watching people do it.
Yeah, man.
For sure. Okay. That's it for TV.
Okay. Did you write anything down for music or just...
I did.
Okay. I can rip through the music because the movies are what's going to be more important.
Yeah.
So...
And I'll run through...
listen. Again, it's the... Yeah, you do that. And it's the same thing I'm going to say. I was still listening to the music that I was listening to, which was all 80s music. A wide variety of different 80s music. But in 1990, these were the things that were appealing to me. The songs, the artists, maybe the albums for sure that I got, but I didn't get every one of the albums on this list, but there's significant songs because there's a lot of music that came out in 1990 that I just didn't give a fuck about. But that's not what this list is. This is the stuff that actually appealed to me. One of them is the Young Guns 2 soundtrack.
I knew you were going to say that.
Because, holy shit, did I love those two Young Guns movies. I really, really did.
Well, I didn't know you were going to say the soundtrack, but I knew you were going to say the movie.
Oh, it's on the movie
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Young Guns and Young Guns 2 are right up there. I even did a...
Didn't you do like a movie?
I did like a series of videos
Yeah.
back then, right before Young Guns 2 was coming out, so maybe 89, 90, I don't know. I did these like... They were called like the Butthole Avengers or something like that, or Butt... Oh, the Butthole Ninjas.
Yeah.
And we were basically Old West, like Young Guns type ridiculous people who had to fight this like evil sheriff and shit like that.
You still have those?
I do have the
Oh,
Butthole
man.
Ninjas. I absolutely do.
Gotta put them up. I don't even know if I've seen those. Maybe I did back in the day.
I think you might have.
Maybe
I
I
think
might
you
see it.
have. Well, you will. So I just love the soundtrack. I mean, of course, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing Bon Jovi's "Blaze of Glory."
Yeah.
You know, it was. I mean, the song of 1990
Of a generation.
of the Old West. Billy Idol came back strong in 1990 with "Rock the Cradle of Love."
Huh.
And that video had this 13-year-old like, I was like,
Oh, I did too.
It was hot and heavy.
I didn't know what I was. I remember watching this video. And, I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house growing up and being like, if she heard her coming down the stairs, being like, I gotta change the channel. Well, maybe I ran up to it. I don't even know if we had a remote, but like, oh yeah, I remember that video specifically and with the red wine, and I was like, oh god.
Yeah, it is a nasty video.
Mm.
It's good.
Still a great video.
It is. It's still a great song.
Yeah,
the song is
it is.
fantastic.
I didn't even see that one. I would have wrote that.
Yeah, when that album, I mean, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Also a big deal in 1990, and she had so many hits from this album. Janet Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
like this is when you were about to see. I mean, true Miss Nasty Jackson if you're nasty. I mean, Miss Jackson if you're nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, she was showing off cleavage and the bouncing and the boobies, and then she was real sexy in a lot of these videos, and it was happening, man. And I was all about Janet Jackson.
What is that, Rhythm Nation then?
It was Funky Cold Medina.
No, it's not the name. What is the name of the...
It's called Fart Mansion
Okay.
by Janet Jackson.
Fart Mansion.
It was huge. But I mean,
That
again,
would be fun.
Janet Jackson, it was huge.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Rhythm Nation. But, I mean, it was like almost every song was a hit.
Yeah.
Was like a chart topper.
Well, I'm sure you'll mention another lady like that.
I don't know if I will.
Isn't that
Maybe you
Vogue?
will.
Isn't Vogue?
Oh,
that year?
Madonna?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I mentioned her on my 80s crush list. I was a big Madonna fan, but my Madonna love is primarily the 80s.
Okay.
In 89 we had Like a Prayer.
Yeah.
Once 1990 hits and this new Madonna hits, yeah, I found it sexy, but the music wasn't appealing to me anymore.
I gotcha.
I was like, ooh, this is different. This is weird. This is like... And I didn't know, but it was like dance music. Like,
Well, yeah,
hip-hoppy, trippy,
I mean,
techno-y.
definitely as the 90s go on, yes, she does.
But
Even Vogue is a little...
Yeah, it was very different.
Yeah,
it was very different.
You're right.
And yeah, she looked good,
She did.
but the music wasn't hitting me
Strike a pose.
just like a year earlier, like it was, you know?
That's fair.
So, 80s Madonna is my Madonna.
Yeah.
That's why she did not make the list.
Okay.
So, I had this album because I loved this song so much. By the Nelson Brothers. Nelson.
Oh,
I Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection.
God, man.
I loved this song. I don't care. The album wasn't that great.
I'm sure.
I didn't like After the Rain or anything like that, but that song, the hook, everything. It just worked for me. So, you know what? I might not even had the album, but this was when cassette singles were like a big deal.
Singles were the rage at the wall.
Yeah, everyone knows the wall. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys had a wall.
You got the singles, and they were in those little cardboard slips.
Yeah.
But maybe I just had that. But that was definitely a Seaver summer of '90. Now here's something. I don't know if you even know who these guys are, but I certainly love them, even from the '80s. But this album, it was huge, and I'm talking about Roxette. And do you know who Roxette is? I think if you heard them, you'd be like, oh.
What's the song?
Well, there's a lot.
Oh. Well, what's a big song?
Dangerous was huge for Roxette.
All right.
That album. But they're the ones who sing It Must Have Been Love.
Okay. I mean, know that song.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if you heard them, you'd be like, holy shit.
They shaped my youth. Oh, I know that song. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely did not remember that.
Well, that's Roxette.
Okay.
Okay? And me and my cousins, Bobby and April, loved Roxette. So,
probably still do.
1990, Roxette.
Tattoo.
Rod Stewart. Again, we've talked about this before, but it surprised people. But I love Rod Stewart, man.
It does surprise me.
And in '90, he had a new album, and it was great. He was getting real thick. I mean, he was bringing over some of that old Motown magic. You know what I'm saying?
I love that song.
It's great.
I was obsessed with that song.
It's great.
Yeah. It was a really good song.
So,
good video.
I love Rod Stewart, man.
Yeah, that was a good song.
It's surprising, right? I also like John Cougar Mellencamp. Right? It just people, just like, what? I don't know. You're crazy. You're crazy. Here's one. Talk about you couldn't get away from it. MC Hammer.
Well, yeah.
You can't touch this.
Yeah.
It was everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was in my boombox.
Yeah.
I definitely was rocking some MC Hammer.
Yeah.
Now, I had heard Hammer at the same time, because I heard, so not at the same time, I guess like a year earlier, on Yo MTV Raps.
Oh, okay.
So there was this song called This Is What We Do by Hammer.
Yep.
And later that song ended up on the Turtles soundtrack, the first Turtles soundtrack.
Well, I had the shit out of that soundtrack.
And it's on my list as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I prefer This Is What We Do to Can't Touch This.
Okay.
But I really loved Can't Touch This. But this was, again, he had almost every song from Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him was a hit. Have you seen her?
Yeah.
Tell me
I love that song too. Whew, that was a good slow jam.
Now, again, by no means was this band a new band, but this album took the world by storm, and this is the B-52s. And this you're getting Love Shack, you're getting Rome, you're getting all those hits back to back to back, and they appealed to me big time. Now, I like the B-52s because of my aunt and uncle, John and Suzanne Seaver, and because they were rocking those Rock Lobsters, and they were rocking the Private Idahos and all that shit in the 80s, and I was like, these guys are crazy, These guys are like doo-wop Devo or something, I don't know. But I really, in those two songs in particular, Love Shack and Rome, I just love.
Yep.
And Love Shack became a real karaoke favorite of mine to do.
Another good video.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles soundtrack, really dug that, and we'll get more into that in the movies. Again, this also...
Is this a 3-part episode?
No, man, we're just going to keep going. It's a big chunky one, my brother.
I'm just thinking.
No, man, we've done this before.
No, I know.
This is the intro to the 90s, so
I'm all about it. I'm just... Yeah.
Also, some people might not know that I'm a fan of this band, but I have been since 1987, and I'm talking about They Might Be Giants. And They Might Be Giants, they put out the album Flood in 1990, and I had the cassette, and I love that band to this day. I prefer their 80s and early 90s stuff, but they're still dropping some gems. I haven't liked a full album from the band in a long time.
But they got some good
singles. They still have some stuff that like comes out and I'm like, oh my god, that sounds like They Might Be Giants. That's my old school Might Be Giants. So the Flood album was great. Here's another one that might surprise people, but I was really into this band for like 3 years. I'm talking about Digital Underground. They released Sex Packets. And
That's the name of the album.
Yeah. I love Digital Underground. I think this band is so fun and funky. And they were, I mean, to me, I hadn't heard anything like Digital Underground since, I guess, maybe Flashlight, Parliament, or Atomic Dog, and even Rick James, some of the 80s Rick James, late 70s Rick James.
Yeah.
But to me, they were taking those sounds and those bass beats and those, just that mentality, that funk, and putting it in with like 1990 beats and shit.
Right.
And I was like, this is getting that. I'm tapping my feet and I am digging this. So, and of course I loved Humpty Hump.
Yeah.
Like that persona was so funny to me.
That's hilarious.
Just silly. So those guys really appealed to me. I never been a fan of, and it came real quick, but gangster rap and all that stuff. I just never was a fan of that stuff. I couldn't relate to any of that. I didn't like what they were singing about. I didn't like how hard it was. So I preferred this type of... That's why in the 80s I was listening to Beastie Boys and I was listening to like Grandmaster Flash and Run DMC and LL Cool J and shit like Houdini and shit like that. Because it was just fun.
Yeah.
And simple. And
taking on issues so much.
I mean, certainly Public Enemy were in the 80s, but that just didn't appeal to me. I liked the more fun stuff.
Yeah.
And Digital Underground was like almost crossing that line, but man, were they just so much fun. They were just so silly. Mm-hmm. So Sex Packets was a big deal in 1990. Well, Sons of the P came out as well. And that's, Sons of Parliament, Sons of Funkadelic, but Sons of the P. I mean, the whole, if you go and you listen, if you look at some of the songs, the titles and everything, you're just like, ridiculous. Who are these guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my final music of 1990 that I loved, and this is also another soundtrack. I loved this movie. And boy, did this soundtrack fill that funk hole. Mm-hmm. This is Prince, Graffiti Bridge.
Okay.
Have you seen Graffiti Bridge, the movie?
No, I've never
Holy shit. That movie is ridiculous.
I'm sure it is. It's Prince.
Andrew hasn't seen it either. He's a giant Prince fan, but he's afraid to watch it. But he said that, like, at one point, we're all just going to get together, and I'm going to put on, because I have it on Blu-ray.
Okay.
And we're going to watch Graffiti Bridge. And I'm telling you something, I haven't watched Graffiti Bridge probably since 1996. But I used to have it on VHS, and I watched it all the time, and the soundtrack was so good. So there's a song that sort of was the single of the soundtrack to promote the movie, and that was called New Power Generation.
I know that song.
NPG.
Yeah, I definitely know that song.
It is funky Prince.
Yeah,
it is
a great
funky
song. Prince.
Yep. It is so good. Mm-hmm. To this day, I still love it. I don't care what anybody says, because really, this is considered garbage to a lot of like Prince
ever
fans.
Say, oh, really? Like the movie or the album?
I would hope not the album.
Because most people...
Thieves in the Temple was that year as well.
Like, most people are Prince fans like his music, whether they like his acting.
Yeah, the movie is
sure it's
what he called like a spiritual sequel to Purple Rain.
Okay.
Purple Rain knocks it out of the... I mean, it's far better than Graffiti Bridge.
Okay.
But at the time, 13-year-old Chris Seaver thought Graffiti Bridge was just like, oh my god, this is crazy.
Did you say this is better than Purple Rain?
No, because man, there's some good stuff in Purple Rain. Apollonia's titas, her chest jowls alone beat out Graffiti Bridge. But probably because of just loving Prince anyway, from a kid to a teen, I just loved Prince, and that funky damn song just made me like attach myself to that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's it.
Look
up New Power Generation, because it is a funky song. It's dope. But that's it. So go on. You got some music.
No,
you got some video games.
I'll go to video games.
Let's talk some video games.
You covered any
video games
that I could have talked about.
You know what? I'll tell you one video game that was huge, that I actually really loved, and I wanted, and I got it, and I think that we all wanted it.
Which is
Mario 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like a revelation.
I mean, that was... I remember going to the Wizard.
Yeah, there's 1989.
In theaters.
It was like the giant commercial
that's it.
for Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah. And you couldn't get it then, but I remember going, this because the graphics between 1 and 2 and to 3 was like, what the fuck? And still, Super Mario Brothers 3 is one of the greatest video games of all time.
I would agree.
Period. I can still play that game, still enjoy it, still get challenged.
Great music.
Great music. Bonk's Adventure was 1990, apparently. One of the only people in the world with a TurboGrafx 16.
That's right. I remember when he brought it over to our grandmother's house, and I just thought it was like one of the coolest machines.
It was on a microchip, the game.
And you slipped it in.
Yeah. Which is cool. So
dope.
You didn't play this game, I don't believe, with us cousins, but Castle of Illusion with Mickey Mouse. No. It was a game that Lisa and Brian had, and Lisa and I didn't have it, so we would always play it at their house when we saw them. Mega Man 3, to me, is the best in the series. Super fun game. TMNT, the arcade game.
Oh shit, that was 90?
That was 90.
Are you sure?
This was what this...
Why didn't I mention this?
Wikipedia article
Because that's one of my fucking favorite games of all time.
Well, look and see what it says on the thing.
It is, like, honestly one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time.
Yeah.
And my wife got it for me for Christmas a couple years ago. Oh, shit. 1990. I should have wrote this down.
Well, hey, we got it. We got it.
This was everything.
It was because the first game, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game, is real hard, and you're almost like, what the fuck are you? You know what I mean? Like, it's just not fun. It's too hard. And then this came out, and I remember being like, whoa.
Well, see, I remember playing this, the arcade version.
Yep.
At...
the arcade at Aladdin's Castle.
Well, I remember playing it in our skating rink, Funland skating rink.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the pinnacle of
video game.
Of graphics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
And so when it was coming to home, your home entertainment, I was like, if I don't get anything, I don't want anything, but it's also the year I fucking got a Game Boy and I hated it.
Well, that's the final thing on here is the Game Boy. And I got a Game Boy this year for Christmas too.
It came out. Oh, you know what? 89 Game Boy came out, and that's when I got it.
Okay.
And I hated it.
Okay.
Or maybe I did get it in 90.
It said 90. I mean, it's
okay. Maybe I did get it in 90 because you're right. You know what? 89 I got the Sega Genesis for Christmas.
The Master System.
And that was my big I'll never forget that Christmas.
Yeah.
Because of that system.
Yeah.
So maybe it was 90 for Christmas I got the Game
Boy,
and I was like, why did I get this?
I remember you being like, What the fuck? I specifically remember you not caring.
I didn't care.
And I got a Game Boy, and I was like, sweet, a Game Boy.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I still have my Game Boy. Somewhere.
Okay, so we're going to do a part 2.
Yeah.
To this video. So it'll be 1990 part 2, the movies. So we did everything up to then, you know, we got it rocking. I think this is a solid episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments some of the stuff that you grew up with and loved.
Share some memories
from
guys.
1990.
Yeah.
Do you have specific memories from 1990 about any of this stuff? Or just your
even just 90s is
life
fine.
in general
Yeah,
of where you were at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hope you dug it, and you know,
we'll keep doing them till Chris hates it.
This is it, guys. This is a Crept from the 90s. You're gonna get this special one-off series on the channel, going through every year and our experiences. So look for, but first look for part 2 of 1990, the movies. So thanks everyone. Please subscribe.
Hit the bell.
Tell your friends. Hit the bell. Share it. Like it. Ooh, I just got weird. I just got like the taste of those
gushers.
Shark bites.
Ah, okay.
The chewy.
I mean, they're kind of like gushers too. I feel like they're all like.
How weird.
That is super weird.
Oh,
You've been transported.
Ugh, that is really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So sun-kissed shark bites. I think it was.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh.
That's creepy. All right. Okay. So whoa. We'll see you on the next episode of It Crept from the 90s.
Yeah. Ace of Base and all that.